about that pretty little friend of Dr. E.'s, that I let Mrs. Embury stay on and on, though not a ray of light did I get for my pains. At last I heard Lucy's step coming downstairs. "Cousin Katy," she said, entering the room with her usual propriety. "I was seated by the window, engaged with my studies, and the children were playing about as usual, when suddenly I heard a shriek, and one of them ran past me all in a blaze, and I believe I pushed her out of my way as I rushed upstairs, for I took it for granted I should meet the little figure all in a blaze coming to meet me. But I found it wrapped in a blanket, all the flames extinguished. Meanwhile Mrs. Embury had roused the whole house, and everybody came running upstairs. "Get the doctor, some of you!" I cried, clasping the poor little writhing form in my arms. And then I looked to see which of them it was, and found it was Auntie's pet lamb, everybody's pet lamb, our little, loving, gentle Emma. Dr. Elliot must have come on wings, for I had not time to be impatient for his arrival. He was as tender as a woman with Emma. We cut off and tore off her clothes wherever the fire had touched her, and he dressed the burns with his own hands. He did not speak a word to me, or I to him. This time he did not find it necessary to advise me to control myself. I was as cold and hard as a stone. But when poor little Emma's piercing shrieks began to subside, and she came a little under the influence of some soothing drops he had given her at the outset, I began to feel that sensation in the back of my neck that leads to conquest over the most stubborn and the most heroic. I had just time to get Emma into the doctor's arms, and then down I went. I got over it in a minute, and was up again before anyone had time to come to the rescue. But Dr. E. gave Emma to Mrs. Embury, who had taken off her things and been crying the whole time, and said in a low voice, "I beg you will now leave the room and lie down, and do not feel obliged to see me when I visit the child. That annoyance, at least, you should spare yourself." "No consideration shall make me neglect little Emma," I replied defiantly. By this time Mrs. Embury had rocked her to sleep, and she lay pale and with an air of complete exhaustion in her arms. "You must lie down now, Miss Mortimer," Dr. Elliot said as he rose to go. "I will return in a few hours to see how you both do." He stood looking at Emma, but did not go. Then Mrs. Embury asked the question I had not dared to ask. "Is the poor child in danger?" "I cannot say. I trust not. Miss Mortimer's presence of mind in extinguishing the flames at once has, I hoped, saved its life." "It was not my presence of mind. It was Lucy's," I cried eagerly. Oh, how I envied her for being the heroine, and for the surprised, delighted smile with which he went and took her hand, saying, "I congratulate you, Lucy. How your mother will rejoice at this." I tried to think of nothing but poor little Emma, and of the reward Auntie had had for her kindness to Lucy. But I thought of myself, and how likely it was that under the same circumstances I should have been beside myself and done nothing. This and many other emotions made me burst out crying. "Yes, cry, cry with all your heart," said Mrs. Embury, laying Emma gently down and coming to get me into her arms. "It will do you good, poor child." She cried with me till I at last could lie down and try to sleep. Well, the days and the weeks were very long after that. Dear mother had a hard time, what with her anxiety about Emma and my crossness and unreasonableness. Dr. Elliot came and went, came and went. At last he said all danger was over, and that our patient little darling would get well. But his visits did not diminish. He came 2 and 3 times every day. Sometimes I hoped he would tell us about his new flame, and sometimes I felt that I could not hear her mentioned. One day mother was so unwell that I had to help him dress Emma's burns, and I could not help saying, "Even a mother's gentlest touch, full of love as it is almost rough compared with that of one trained to such careful handling as you are." He looked gratified, but said, "I am glad you begin to find that even stones feel sometimes." Another time something was said about the fickleness of women. Mrs. Embury began it. I fired up, of course. He seemed astonished at my attack. I said nothing, he declared. No, but you looked a good many things. Now the fact is, women are not fickle. When they lose what they value most, they find it impossible to replace it. But men console themselves with the first good thing that comes along. I dare say I spoke bitterly, for I was thinking how soon somebody replaced me in his shallow heart, and how, with equal speed, Dr. Elliot had helped himself to a new love. I do not like these sweeping assertions, said Dr. Elliot, looking a good deal annoyed. I have to say what I think, I persisted. It is well to think rightly, then, he said gravely. By the by, have you heard from Helen? Mrs. Embury most irreverently asked. Yes, I heard yesterday. I suppose you will be writing her, then? Will you enclose a little note from me? Or rather, let me have the least corner of your sheet. I was shocked at her want of delicacy. Of course, this Helen must be the new love, and how could a woman with 2 grains of sense imagine he would want to spare her a part of his sheet? I felt tired and irritated. As soon as Dr. Elliot had gone, I began to give her a good setting down. I could hardly believe my ears, I said, when I heard you ask leave to write on Dr. Elliot's sheet. No wonder, she said, laughing. I suppose you never knew what it was to have to count every shilling, and to deny yourself the pleasure of writing to a friend because of what it would cost. I'm sure I never did, till I was married. But to ask him to let you help write his love letters, I objected. Ah, is that the way the wind blows? She cried, nodding her pretty little head. Well, then, let me relieve your mind, my dear, by informing you that this love letter is to his sister, my dearest friend, and the sweetest little thing you ever saw. Oh, I said, and immediately felt quite rested and quite like myself. Like myself? And who is she, pray? 2 souls dwell in my poor little body, and which of them is me, and which of them isn't, it would be hard to tell. This is the way they behave. Scene first. Katy, to the other creature whom I will call Kate. Your mother looks tired, and you have been very cross. Run and put your arms around her and tell her how you love her. Kate. Oh, I can't. It would look queer. I don't like palaver. Besides, who would not be cross who felt as I do? Scene second. Katy. Little Emma has nothing to do and ought to be amused. Tell her a story, do. Kate. I'm tired and need to be amused myself. Katy. But the dear little thing is so patient and has suffered so much. Kate. Well, I have suffered too. If she had not climbed up on the fender, she would not have got burned. Scene third. Katy. You are very irritable today. You had better go upstairs to your room and pray for patience. Kate. One can't always be praying. I don't feel like it. Scene fourth. Katy. You treat Dr. Elliot shamefully. I should think he would really avoid you as you avoid him. Kate. Don't let me hear his name. I don't avoid him. Katy. You do not deserve his good opinion. Kate. Yes, I do. Scene fifth. Just awake in the morning. Katy. Oh dear, how hateful I am. I am cross and selfish and domineering and vain. I think of myself the whole time. I behave like a heroine when Dr. Elliot is present, and like a naughty, spoiled child when he is not. Poor mother, how can she endure me? As to my piety, it is worse than none. Kate, a few hours later. Well, nobody can deny that I have a real gift in managing children, and I am very lovable, or mother wouldn't be so fond of me. I am always pleasant unless I am sick or worried, and my temper is not half so hasty as it used to be. I never think of myself, but am all the time doing something for others. As to Dr. E., I am thankful to say that I have never stooped to attract him by putting on airs and graces. He sees me just as I am, and I am very